website called spongelab.com. If y'all want, I can send you the link for it. And basically, this website is basically has all the different body systems women have in the body. And there's digestive system. Let's see here. Respiratory system, skeletal system, nervous system, excretory system, and circulatory system. There are many other systems more than this, but just these is just going to be the main focus. And not only you had kids do the website, I'll explain a little bit later about this website. There's the way to get them engaged and understand these body systems is to first ask them what's the purpose of the digestive system. Give them time to answer. I mean, there are many things they can say. And then you have the organs. There are different organs in the digestive system, like the pancreas, the liver, the small intestines. Make sure you mention to that. But also have them come up with some stuff and have them maybe kind of ask them. Be kind of brief with this. If it's like running out of time, you can kind of skip through a few of them. But you have the digestive system, respiratory, skeletal, circulatory. Kind of get them to be open-minded and ask them what these systems do.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, there's going to be a worksheet that you guys all have, and there's an answer key that follows with the worksheet, so you'll obviously have all the answers to everything. I'm not sure how long this activity is going to take. Ideally, computer lab portion, just to kind of help them get more understanding of the different body parts, and so they have more familiarity, I guess, when they're doing a worksheet in a sense.
And also, one of the focuses of this worksheet is going to look at the different diseases that are associated with each one of the different systems of the body, and so you can kind of tie that into different medical careers and different like physicians or nurses or nutritionists, phlebotomists that might be treating those associated diseases. Yeah, maybe like do an example.
Yeah, sure. So right now it's like circulatory system, and you basically just pretty much take what's on here, and then you place it in the right spot, and show the kids where it's actually located. That way they know. So that's a perfect example where the heart goes.
And so this activity is all going to take place on the first day. That also includes the orientation. And I guess this module is like a little different since there's only 2 classroom sessions. And so the first classroom session is the orientation and the understanding the human body. And then the second classroom session is going to be a frog dissection. And then the remaining weeks are going to be field trips.
Question about this website. Now, if they were to place the organ in the wrong place in the body, does it give them a prompt, or what does it do?
It basically, if you place it wrong, it kicks you out. It kicks back out. I was
Okay.
just playing with it earlier. I was realizing that it kicks back out.
Okay.
So I guess typically we probably do this lab activity at the end of class. At the beginning of class, there's some topics that they had planned for everyone to go through. One of them is just kind of starting off with gaining an understanding of what the girls thought about what medicine was. So just pretty much asking what that is, different fields of medicine, and just kind of having a discussion going on between you and the girls. And after that, you're kind of trying to give them different career options. And so more than likely, they're going to suggest doctors, like the first thing that comes to mind. Then you can try and figure out, oh, so what are the different types of doctors that exist? And they'll probably throw out some names, you can give them others, but just making sure that they understand what these different doctors are, whether it be like radiologists or cardiologists or pediatricians, things like that. Just kind of giving them that knowledge so they're aware of the different fields of medicine that are existing that they could potentially go into if they're interested.
Do you have any move that discussion forward, or not everybody here necessarily has a medical background, so they might be familiar with some of the doctors, but then some of the other, like you mentioned phlebotomists earlier, or even physician assistants and things like that. Is there any literature to help us kind of guide those discussions?
Sure, so we don't have a PowerPoint, but we do have like an orientation guide that's kind of like a bulleted list of like everything that we're describing now, and so that's definitely something that we can email out. And that includes like some of the topics that you were hitting on, like the different specialties of doctors. And so they're all listed on there. And then like also like phlebotomists, nutritionists, physician assistants. And so that's all on this worksheet that we can send out.
So, I'm just kind of following the orientation guide that we were provided. So pretty much once you've kind of discussed different fields of being a doctor in a sense, you can go into other elements of medicine, which are, research, drug development, engineering, healthcare administration, and government. And under research, you can kind of talk about different genetic research, cancer research, different things pertaining to psychology, clinical trials, and things like that. And Alicia work kind of more on the research side of things. So if you do have a medical background, that's probably the perfect time to kind of talk about your experiences that you have, so the girls can kind of relate to it a bit better. For drug development, you can talk about pharmaceutical companies and different things that they're developing. I guess if you're aware of any examples of some popular ones, you can give those out. And there's commercial in place, so that can probably be something that they can reference to a lot easier. And then there's engineering with a lot of medical things to issue. I know like nowadays they're doing like 3D printing of organs and different things like that. So just kind of list all the different cool ways engineering is kind of tying into the medical field. And then we have healthcare administration, which is like someone who runs the hospital, president or CEO, just kind of deciding on where the money's being spent and just kind of future plans of those different facilities. And then government, you have like the Food and Drug Administration and the National Institute of Health and different organizations like that.
And a lot of these organizations, like if they seem like a little more complex, like that the girls might not know about them off the top of their head, then you can always like tie it into like how it affects their daily life. So like what does the FDA do? Like they're approving drugs, but also like setting guidelines for what food is safe to eat and things like that. And so that's how they can kind of like have an idea in their head of what these organizations do.
So there's a couple other things. The lab is at the end, and you can kind of go through this guide during the course and try to get, guide it the way you guys feel fit, given how much time you have also, because you do want to allow enough time for the lab at the end. But that's pretty much the gist of what's going to happen during orientation. And that would be, session 1. That would be the end of session 1. And as Stacia and Jackie mentioned, there's different schedules, so some girls will have a solo trip the next week, and some girls will have the next session, which is pertaining to frog dissections.
Yeah.
So we will have like actual kits like to help guide through like the frog dissection, but we have like a couple other resources. So like for instance, like if there's girls that feel uncomfortable dissecting the frog, then there's like a virtual dissection. But that also is actually a really helpful resource for someone trying to teach like how to dissect a frog, because you can kind of go through and like see where things are and what they might look like. And then we also have like a YouTube video that has like a very detailed protocol on how to actually do a frog dissection that we'll pull up now. So like it'll probably be split like 50-50 between female frogs and male frogs, and the dissection process is a little different depending on which it is, like because the female frogs have a lot of eggs inside of them that you have to kind of remove before you can see everything. And so I think that that's the video that we'll show just because it's a little more complicated.
I think it's like 30 minutes, but apparently the female dissection is a bit more complicated, she was saying, so they're probably the best one to show.
Don't have gloves, right? You don't have gloves.
We can also notice the back legs here. Look at the webbed feet
Yeah, the kids must have
designed
gloves to
for
do it.
swimming in water. Another feature of the frog is the eye.
That's very
If we
dangerous.
take a look at the eye here, we see this membrane right here. This is called a nictitating membrane. The frog actually uses this when it's in the water to help protect its eye from any abrasions or anything like that in the water that might come in contact with his eye. So that actually flips up to protect the frog's eye in the water. We also see this other structure right here called the tympanum. That's going to be the ear of the frog. The next thing we want to locate here is the cloaca. Now the cloaca is sort of like an anus, and I've got the probe right there. That's going to be the cloaca, and that's going to be a common opening where both digestive waste comes out of there, urinary waste comes out of there, and sperm and egg, depending upon the sex of the frog, also comes out that same hole. So that's going to be the cloaca. Let's take a look at the size of the frog's legs. You can see,
I want to pause real quick. So obviously, learn those heavy terms like cloaca. Kids don't want to need to know that. But obviously, there are certain body parts that you will be dissecting in a frog, like the heart, the reproductive system, the lungs, the tongue. You learn about the digestive system and the skeletal system. So if we keep it under those simple terms, it will make it easier for kids to learn instead of learning advanced words. Words I never even heard of as a scientist.
the large muscles, they're going to be used for jumping. In addition to that, the frog's spine is also extra strong in his low back to support the type of jumping and pounding that the spine is going to take. Now, you can see clearly that the frog has two different colorations, a very dark color on his dorsum or back side, and a very light color on his ventral side. And this is called countershading. We've seen it before with the earthworm, and this helps camouflage the frog. From above, it's difficult for a bird to see this frog against the dirt or soil. And if this frog is swimming in the water and fish are looking up, it's very difficult to see the frog's light underside when it superimposes with the sky and the clouds. So that helps protect the frog against predators. Now, the first thing we want to do in terms of the dissection is to take a look inside the mouth. There's going to be several structures that we need to be familiar with there. To just open the mouth isn't going to work that well because the muscles tend to tighten up. So what we want to do is actually, using our scissors, begin to make a small cut in the corners of the frog's mouth. So I'll make a cut here and another cut on the other side. If the cut isn't deep enough, we might have to go back and do it again. And there we go. So now the mouth should open up fairly easily, which it does. And we can begin to look at some of the parts of the frog's mouth. The first thing we notice here is the tongue flips out. The tongue is actually going to be attached to the front of the frog's mouth instead of the rear like your tongue is. And that, again, is because the tongue flips out in order to catch prey. Another thing we're going to notice in the mouth is some teeth, but not quite like ours. You're going to have two prominent teeth right here. You can see those two protrusions, one here and one here. Those are called vomerine teeth. And around the sides of the frog's mouth, if I pull back its gum just a little bit here, I can get the forceps in there. That side's not working for me. If I pull back the frog's gum a little bit, you can see that there's a lot of little ridges around the gum. And you can see right here, especially you can feel it with your finger, those ridges. Those are called maxillary teeth. And the purpose of the frog's teeth is not so much to chew food, because the frog really doesn't do that. The teeth simply hold the prey in place while the frog is busy trying to swallow the food whole. And then the frog lets his stomach worry about the details. Now, if we look inside the frog's mouth, we see two openings right next to the probe. These openings are the nostrils. They're actually called internal nares, and these are the frog's nostrils. If we go in a little bit deeper into the frog's mouth, you can see two openings, one here and one right there. And just to confirm, when I put the probe into these openings, I'm going to gently put the probe in there, you can see that it's actually pushing against the eardrum right there. So that's called the eustachian tube, and that allows the frog to equalize pressure. If we go in a little bit further and I pull this frog's mouth open just a little bit more, we'll see a hole come into view. And I'm going to dry up some of this liquid here. We'll see a hole come into view. Right here, you see a little protrusion there, and there's actually going to be a hole there. I can stick the probe right into that hole. This hole is the glottis, so the probe's inside the glottis right now. The glottis is the opening to the lungs. Well, this opening actually goes down through the trachea and eventually into the lungs. And there's an opening right posterior to that, and that opening is going to be the opening to the esophagus. Just to confirm, once we open up the frog's chest and abdomen, we can actually again put the probe in here and see that the probe is actually going into a lung or the probe is going into the stomach, and we'll do that in just a few minutes. Those are the parts of the mouth that I want you to be familiar with. The next thing we want to do is actually begin the dissection. So we're going to use our scissors, and we're going to cut from the groin up to the mouth of the frog. However, I just want you to cut through the skin. So with your forceps, pull up the skin, see how thin it is right there. That's all that we want to cut through initially. We don't want to cut through the muscles, we don't want to cut through the organs, just the skin. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stick the scissors into the skin, and I'm simply going to cut up through the skin all the way to the mouth. And then I'm going to cut down both thighs. So I want to take a look at the muscle there and see how thick that muscle really is. So I'm not cutting through the muscle, I'm just cutting the skin. Notice my blade is parallel to the muscle, and I'm not angling it down into the muscle where it's going to gouge the muscle. I'll do the other leg, the other thigh. Again, I'm just cutting through that very thin, moist skin. And I'm going to pull that skin back. And what you notice when I pull that skin back is all the blood vessels. Now this frog, I think, has been injected with a little bit of dye to make the blood vessels more obvious. But you can see all the blood vessels under the skin there. And again, those blood vessels are there for a reason. This is where gas exchange takes place. So the skin is going to be very, very vascular, meaning there's going to be a lot of blood vessels there. Because the function of the skin is to try to get the blood and the air in as close a contact as possible. So we've got lots of blood vessels picking up that nice rich oxygen and returning it to the circulation of the frog. Let's take a look at the other side. And again, we see the same thing, lots and lots of blood vessels, because the frog's main respiratory organ is its skin. Under that, you can see some of these abdominal muscles. This is what muscle looks like. See if you can find which way the muscles actually go, the striations in the muscles. Because that's the way. If the muscles look like they're going in this direction, then they're going to contract in that direction. So see if you can actually see which way the muscle striations are traveling. If we look down here in the thigh, again, you can see the muscles of the thigh, how large they are and how dependent the frog is on those big, thick leg muscles for movement. And again, you can look at the striations, the pattern in the muscles to determine which way these muscles are actually going to contract. Again, more blood vessels in the skin. The next thing I want to do is cut through the musculature here. But I've got to be careful. The abdominal muscles are not that thick, and I don't want to injure the organs, which are going to be directly below. So I'm going to start with an incision down near the groin. And again, I'm going to keep my blade parallel, my lower blade parallel, so I don't gouge the organs. And I'm going to cut right up the center of the frog. I'm going to cut right through here. I might have to cut through a little bit of cartilage and bone there. And I'm going to reflect or peel back the muscles. Now you might have to cut some of this. Cut here, cut up here, so I can more easily reflect the skin of the frog. And I don't really need to worry about this anymore, so I can cut this right off. And that way I don't have it in my way. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. I'm going to reflect back the abdominal muscles here. I'm going to reflect back the skin. And I'm just going to remove those so I have more easy access to the organs. Now the first thing that's most obvious here is all this salt and pepper looking structure right here. These are eggs. So this is a female frog. She's about to lay her eggs. Again, she's going to lay these eggs somewhere near the water where they can remain moist. These eggs are going to kind of get in our way, so we're going to try to remove them in orderly fashion in just a minute. Another structure we notice here is this dark structure. This is a lobe of the liver. This is a piece of liver right here. And then under that I see this muscular structure. That's going to be the frog's stomach. So the first thing I guess I want to do in order to see the organs is to try to remove the eggs here. So I'm going to try to get in there with my fingers and gently remove these eggs without making a big mess. So I'm going to try to get in here and remove some of these eggs so we have a more clear view of the organs. Awful lot of eggs here. And remember, most of these eggs will be eaten by predators. So we're not going to see 1 million frogs or so suddenly appear. Most of these will be eaten by predators. And that's why the frog, one of the reasons why the frog has to lay so many eggs. So we've gotten rid of most of the eggs here. Fairly orderly way. And underneath that, you can see all these small tubes that I've got the forceps in. These tubes are fallopian tubes, or oviducts. This is part of the female reproductive structure. And you see the same thing on the other side here. All this is oviduct. You can see them there also. Let's take a look at the frog's digestive structures first. I'm going to get rid of some of this here so we can see a little bit more clearly. Again, if any of this tissue gets in your way, feel free to cut it out. Now let's take a look at the digestive tract of this frog. So again, this is going to be the stomach here. You see the stomach coming down, the stomach's going to narrow here. And where it narrows, that's where the small intestine begins. Now I've teased away the small intestine. And what you can do is follow the small intestine around, follow it around, until all of a sudden it becomes larger right here. And where it becomes larger, that's going to be the large intestine. Now, the small and the large intestine are not named because of their length, but they're named because of their diameters. The large intestine has a larger diameter. And this large intestine will eventually exit through that cloaca, that opening that we showed you earlier. Now, some other structures that I want to go over are the liver. You can see this nice large liver, and the liver is always going to be large. In a fetal pig, it's also quite large. In you, it's quite large. And if we gently lift the liver up, we're going to see a small sac-like structure right there. It almost looks like a pea. You can see that sac-like structure. That's going to be the gallbladder. Now, the liver produces bile, which is going to help in digestion. And that bile is going to be stored in the gallbladder. And then that's going to be released into the small intestine when food is eaten to help with digestion of fat. Some other structures that I'm looking for around here. Here's our stomach again. And on the inside of the stomach, when I say inside, the lesser curvature, this is a large curve here. This would be the greater curvature. So this would be the lesser curvature. There should be a very small, sometimes not so obvious, it's kind of ill-formed pancreas. The pancreas oftentimes is going to be ill-formed. It's not a very well-formed organ, and I'm looking for it here. It's not always going to be the easiest to find, but this is where it's usually located. If I tease apart, we can see some tissue here. This tissue helps hold the organs in place. This tissue is referred to as mesentery. That is called mesentery. And before we go on and we find the pancreas, if we can find it here, I want to talk a little bit about the mesentery. And the mesentery comes from something called the peritoneum. The peritoneum is a thin layer of tissue. It's a thin sheet of tissue. You can see it right here. It's almost like saran wrap. You can see that peritoneum. And that peritoneum is going to line the body cavity, and it's also going to line the organs. And it does a couple things. Two of the big things it does is it helps the organs move more freely, and it also helps to protect against infection. The mesentery is actually a piece of peritoneum. It actually is going to surround blood vessels, and it's going to support and actually hold on to some of the organs. So we can see some of the peritoneum or mesentery right there, that tissue. It's actually surrounding the blood vessels. Underneath, if we lift up the stomach and I look underneath, I see another small structure. It looks kind of purplish or brown. It looks right there. It looks almost like a dried up raisin. This is going to be the spleen. That's going to be the spleen of the frog right there. I'm still looking for the pancreas. I'm unable to see the pancreas. Perhaps this is a small piece of it in here. It's very poorly formed. I think that's actually going to be it right there. Again, if we look at the lesser curvature, right around here, you might see a very small sliver of tissue. It's going to look sort of glandular, sort of grainy.